Coming up towards 10 minutes after 8, Rhema, Brekky on your Friday morning, and being the second Friday morning of the month, we get to chat, naturally speaking, this morning with our resident naturopath and nutritionist, Kelli Kieselbach, is joining us. Kelli, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm going really well, thanks. Nice to see your face, and we almost got caught out with the crossover last week. It's one of those things where it just seems to throw the calendar out early in the piece when you've got the a start of a brand new month halfway through the week. But we got there, we got there. We're here. We
did,
and we're ready to do it this morning. Now, a big topic, this one as well, and of course, I think a lot of people very, very aware of this, but we want to talk inflammation this morning because it is, again, a massive topic. So we've heard all about inflammation in the body, but can you tell us exactly what is it?
I can, yes. So inflammation, it's a normal bodily process, part of the immune system. So it's not inherently bad. It's a good thing when it happens at the appropriate times in the appropriate ways. So when we cut ourselves, we pick up an infection, something like that. It's part of the immune system's way of bringing immune cells and bringing nutrients to the site of injury. For example, if you twist your ankle or cut yourself or pick up a cold, and we get those typical signs usually of, redness, swelling, heat, and that is what we call acute inflammation. Then we've got chronic inflammation. So this is when that acute inflammation, perhaps it fails to resolve, or perhaps there's just a low-grade underlying chronic inflammation for other reasons, because of other conditions or because the way we're living our lives. And that's when it becomes a problem, and it can be a key feature of lots of different common conditions.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's always good to be able to differentiate between the two, isn't it? Because, it is, like you say, a normal immune response to whatever's going on in the body. But if it becomes chronic and long term, I guess that's when you can...
that's when it's a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, is there a way that you can actually measure inflammation in the body? That's probably what people want to find out this morning.
Yeah, well, there are some common tests that your GP might run that are markers for inflammation. They are not necessarily specific tests, so they kind of measure inflammation in general throughout the body. Those markers can be within normal range. It doesn't mean that it doesn't always pick up that low-grade chronic inflammation. And often if there are signs of inflammation in the body, you'll go on to have other tests to see what's going on. But we can also assess inflammation by looking at the clinical picture. So what are the signs and symptoms, and do we think that might be some inflammation going on under the surface?
Yeah. Now, speaking of signs and symptoms, great segue, by the way. What are they that we should look for in the body?
Okay, there can be many and varied. So the acute signs and symptoms, which I already mentioned, are the pain, swelling, redness, lack of movement. Those are the acute inflammation. When we're talking about chronic inflammation, it's probably easier to look at the types of diseases and conditions that people experience, where the key feature is chronic inflammation. So we see this in cardiovascular disease, diabetes, or autoimmune diseases. All autoimmune diseases, inflammation is a key feature. Mm-hmm. We also see this in long COVID or post-viral issues and chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, arthritis. Is really a feature of so many different conditions. The other, signs and symptoms, might be skin issues or...
Like rashes and things like that, or
rashes and things, or non-specific pain. In women, menstrual pain. Inflammation is a big driver there as well. So there's lots of different signs and symptoms. But we would know just by if you had a condition or a certain symptom like that, we would know that there was an underlying chronic inflammation going on.
Yeah. So you're looking kind of more at so there is a factor of, inflammation being inherent in the body, obviously with some sort of disease, but it's also the things that we put into our bodies or even put onto our bodies. That's correct?
Yeah, so it's a normal bodily process.
Yep.
It's there to protect us and to promote healing when we need it. But the way we live our lives, what we eat, what we drink, what's going on for us, that can all influence how much inflammation or the ability of the body to resolve that acute inflammation.
Yeah. Now, generally speaking, what are some of the ways that we'd be able to reduce or even to try and limit inflammation?
Yeah. So generally speaking, eating a whole food, healthy diet, that's obviously really important. But things like stress. So stress is highly inflammatory.
Hmm.
So doing things to support our nervous system to be able to manage stress better becomes really, really important. So it might be things like, mindfulness and prayer or going for your walk, those sort of relaxation activities. And we'd want to be looking at sort of reducing alcohol, so not overindulging.
Sure.
That would be a big one. And appropriate movement. So exercise at the right level can be anti-inflammatory. And but what we don't want is to under-exercise or over-exercise because that can shift the balance as well. And maintaining a healthy weight. So when we're carrying excess fatty tissue, that kind of becomes its own organ and starts to produce compounds that are inflammatory as well. So trying to maintain a healthy weight is really important as well.
Yep. It's I like how you put them all together as far as, different diseases are inflammatory. So cardiovascular disease, autoimmunity and all that kind of stuff. But again, with just those deposits of fat. So it really is a lifestyle choice there, isn't it? And
Yeah.
we often don't think about fat being inflammatory, but it really is, isn't it?
Yeah, when it's in excess.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now,
So that's when it's a problem.
now with the exercise and that, I think you mentioned before there, just making sure that you're getting enough of it. I mean, are you looking at sort of things like, are we talking sort of resistance training? We talking cardio work, maybe running, walking, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So typically, just as a rule of thumb, a mix of both is ideal for most people.
Hmm.
But a lot of, the research is around, walking, aerobic exercise.
Sure.
But the thing with resistance exercise is that it does improve our sensitivity to insulin, so the way that we manage sugar.
Hmm.
And so that indirectly becomes really important when we're looking at inflammation because anything we can do to manage our blood sugar and manage our insulin is going to help us manage inflammation.
Yeah.
So a mix of both is my recommendation.
Awesome. So all the gym rats out there, the gym bros, they're loving that
Yeah.
information. They're like, yes, I knew I was onto
Yes,
a
yes,
good
but
thing here.
really important to not over-exercise as well
Yes.
because that can drive up inflammation. So,
Yep,
yeah.
absolutely. We are talking with our resident naturopath and nutritionist, Kelli Kieselbach, this morning on Rhema Brekky. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with Kelli right after this. This is Rhema Brekky on your Friday morning. A little bit of a rain about later on, but at least you'll be able to get out and do some things through the day. And, of course, we are joined by our resident naturopath and nutritionist, Kelli Kieselbach, is with us. We're talking about inflammation. And, Kelli, let's jump in again from where we left off. Now, what are some of the foods that commonly cause inflammation that are well known for it?
Yeah, absolutely. So highly processed foods. So definitely what we call ultra processed foods. So these are foods that are essentially made in a lab. So things like your soft drinks, your margarines, those types. Anything that comes in a packet that has lots of colors and additives and probably fancy labels, they can be highly inflammatory. So,
Yep.
yeah, and we also see when we have too many animal foods.
Mm-hmm.
So, too much dairy, too much meat, can shift the balance and they can create inflammation because of in the body, certain types of fats are precursors to inflammatory compounds. So you might have heard of omega-3 and fish oil, which we know is
Totally.
an anti-inflammatory fat. That's because the omega-3, once our body has processed it, it turns it into anti-inflammatory compounds that the bodies can use to mitigate inflammation. a lot of the omega-6 fats and a lot of your saturated fats, which are found in your meats and dairies more so, that's a precursor to inflammatory compounds.
Mm-hmm.
So once your body has processed those, you create more inflammation within the body. So making sure that we don't have to completely, take all animal foods out of our diet, but we just have to make sure that we have a really good balance. So we're getting the right ratio of the different types of fats to help control inflammation. And alcohol, I think, was one I already mentioned as well. So highly inflammatory, and lots of processed oils. So, the processed oils that we might find in packaged dips or chocolate, confectionery, and sugar. I almost forgot sugar.
Probably the biggest one on the list, really.
Yeah, the top of the list. That one is a big one as well. So, and I'm talking about added sugars. I'm not talking about natural sugars found in fresh fruit, but added sugars and, artificial sweeteners and things like that as well. Highly inflammatory.
Yeah, so always keep an eye on that. Now, when you were talking there about meat, I mean, obviously everybody pretty well knows, I think, about the amount of omega-3s in fish. So are you sort of leaning more towards a diet that's just tipped in the balance a little bit more towards more fish as opposed to, say, a whole lot of red meat, or even, adding a little bit of red meat with fish, with chicken, turkey, things like that? So kind of trying to find a balance somewhere in there?
Yeah, trying to find a balance. So a little bit more of the, probably fish and free-range eggs as your protein sources, with a little bit of chicken and red meat thrown in there. And I prefer fermented dairy rather than having too much milk.
Sure.
Because it does contain some of those inflammatory compounds. And then your diet in general more heavily shifted to the plant-based foods to balance everything out.
Yep. So when we're talking diets, food groups and all that, what are the best ones really to reduce inflammation?
Yeah. So if we start with those omega-3 rich foods, so not all fish are rich in omega-3. So we're talking about the oily fish. So I like to remember it from the acronym SMASH. So it's salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. So those are your oily omega-3 fish. And we also have some nuts and seeds which are really rich in omega-3. So this would be walnuts, pecans, chia seeds, and hemp seeds, and flax seeds as well. So adding plenty of those into your diet is really important. And then I really encourage people to really get into their herbs and spices. Fresh or dried, organic is better, but things like turmeric, ginger, cumin, rosemary, they've all been shown to have really powerful anti-inflammatory properties.
Yeah, there's been a lot of work done around turmeric and curcumin, hasn't there, lately? And I mean, even there's supplements now with both of them in together. So if we're going to supplement those, what should we be looking at as far as a balance?
So it depends on the outcome you're trying to achieve. So there are certain forms, we've gotten really clever with our technology, food technology. There are certain forms of curcumin that are going to be better for that whole body systemic inflammation. It's really hard to, tell people what to look for, but because you need to know what the manufacturing codes and things.
Sure.
But the curcumin is going to be the most powerful. Often it will be put together with black pepper. And having it with a fat is going to be more absorbed and more available to the body. But if you're wanting to use turmeric more so for inflammation in the gut, or as a prebiotic for your good bacteria, then just turmeric can still have an anti-inflammatory impact locally, but also systemically, because your bacteria are feeding on it and creating anti-inflammatory compounds. So it does become quite complex. I'm not sure if I really answered your question.
No, that's cool.
The best way would be to talk to a nutritionist or naturopath who knows about these things to make sure the product you're taking is going to actually give you some benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, look, what are some of the ways that you, as a naturopath nutritionist, would treat clients? Say if they come to you and they look, my inflammation levels are through the roof. I
Yeah.
need help. How can I go about this?
Yes. Well, this would be sort of 95% of my clients. So
Yeah.
I'm guiding my clients firstly towards an anti-inflammatory diet. So making tweaks that are sustainable for them,
Hmm.
that bring in a lot of those anti-inflammatory foods, a lot more plant foods, a lot more whole foods, fruits and vegetables, lots of different colors. The more colors we have in our diet, and when I say colors, I'm talking about fruits and vegetables, not Skittles and M&Ms. Yeah, lots of variety. The anti-inflammatory diet, kind of similar to a Mediterranean diet, which some people might be familiar with.
Hmm.
So plant-based, still with a little bit of your animal foods in there as well. I'd also be looking at using herbal medicine. So we just talked about turmeric. There's a whole host of other herbs that now have quite a bit of research behind them in terms of the anti-inflammatory impact. So, I'd be looking at things like boswellia and rosemary and
Hmm.
saffron, and some nutrients as well to really bring that inflammation down,
Sure.
to a baseline level where we can see those symptoms start to change. Yeah, and then I'd talk them through all the lifestyle stuff as well. So, how much stress do they have in their life? How much alcohol are they drinking? All of those things,
Yep.
and helping them manage that better.
Yep, absolutely. Some great info there. We've run right out of time now. Before we finish off this morning, Kelly, how can people find you, particularly if they want to get some info, maybe book in, all that kind of thing?
Absolutely. So the best place to start would be my website, which is kellik.com.au. So kellik.com.au. I also am on Instagram and Facebook. So at KellyK_naturopath for Instagram, or at KellyK Health on Facebook. And you'll be able to find posts there. I've already posted a fair bit on inflammation and how that relates to certain conditions. So that's probably a great place to start. And if you want to contact me, you can through social media or through the website. You can book appointments or a free introductory phone appointment if you want to just have a chat first.
Hmm.
And I do a lot of work via Zoom as well. So
Awesome.
good to know
Yeah.
for people in your neck of the woods.
Modern technology, it's a marvelous thing, that is for sure. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us this morning, as every month, and we'll see you next month again with another topic. Looking forward to it. That is our resident naturopath and nutritionist, Kelli Kieselbach, there joining us this morning via Zoom, and of course, kellik.com.au. That is the first port of call. Jump on there, check it out. Some great info. This is Rhema Brekky on your Friday morning. Stay with us. We've got the 8:30 news coming up next.